What is going on out there, Mountaineer Nation, Couz's Corner family? Welcome into this impromptu pop-up live stream today as we're going to talk about the results from the Big 12 football games that took place this weekend. As you can see, I'm not using my normal platform of StreamYard. I just decided I'm just going to make this quick and easy, pop up right here direct to YouTube, and let's do this thing. So thanks for all of you for hopping on. I haven't done one like this in a long, long time. I normally use StreamYard, so bear with me a second as I figure out my way around this platform here. But anyway, what we're going to talk about is the Oklahoma Texas game, what came from that how great of a game that was. And we'll talk about how that impacts the rest of the Big 12. We're also going to talk about how where does West Virginia stand in all this? Do they have a chance now to make it to Dallas and play in the Big 12 title game? All of that's we're going to talk about in this episode. And obviously, if you guys want to steer the conversation in a specific direction, all you have to do is make sure you hit that $ near the chat box at the bottom and where it says chat, and it will highlight your chat with a small one-time donation, and I'll be sure to see it. What I'm going to try to do real quick is see. Yep. Before we get too far along, I probably need to I don't know what the heck's happening here. Yeah, okay. Before we get too far along here, I need to give a shout out to my channel sponsor, Dutch Miller Automotive. This live stream is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller store near you. And obviously, I will leave when this is done, I'll leave a link to the Dutch Miller Auto site in the description box. Thanks for all those people who are hopping in here. If you want to leave a chat, make sure you leave a chat. If you want to leave a super chat, make sure I see it. Obviously, comes with a one-time donation. So, the Oklahoma-Texas game. What's up, Evil Cowboy? Thanks for hopping in here. The Oklahoma-Texas game. I watched the majority of the game. I actually spent the first half on a live stream with Outlaw of College Football as he was doing a watch-along. Then I had to get off and do some other things, but watched the first half on his channel or with him and some of his channel members and then and subscribers. And then watched basically the last few minutes of the game when it was coming down to the wire there. Man, what a comeback Dylan Gabriel had. I tell you what, anybody who wasn't sold on Dylan Gabriel, you should be now. Because that guy just absolutely looked really good. If you look statistically, he's right now the best quarterback in the Big 12, and he lived up to that in that game yesterday. Quinn Ewers didn't play a bad game either, but Dylan Gabriel obviously is the one who came down and took his team down the field on a game-winning touchdown drive in a minute 20 seconds, something like that. So Oklahoma, I did not think they would win that game, but they did. They overcame some adversity. They were actually down in that game, I think, by 10 points at one time. Were able to come back and win. So kudos. Or actually, no, they were ahead by 10. Texas came back, and then they were able to overcome Texas's comeback and pull ahead at the end. I think that's how it actually went down. Sorry, my mind's all over the place here, guys. I literally threw this together last second, so I'm not real prepared. What's up, David Cummings? He's in the house. David Cummings says, and I can't put your chats on the screen today either, guys, because I'm not on StreamYard, but he says, David Cummings, who's a channel member, he says, that was one hell of a game. The SEC is in for a treat. Don't hate me for that comment, but I love a great football game. Hey, man, it was a great game. Josh Neighbors did an episode on his show saying, hey, man, if you didn't enjoy that game, you don't like college football. That was one heck of a football game. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. It was an exciting game, a fun game, a lot of good football. So there were some exciting moments, some crap moments, some missed opportunities, and then some big plays also. So you had a little bit of everything, man. I really enjoyed it. Oklahoma, after Oklahoma had up to that point had played a pretty soft schedule, and a lot of people were wondering, hey, how are they going to look against a team as talented as Texas? Because it's by far the most talented team they've played so far. And, man, they looked apart. I mean, Jeff Levy's offense looked good. The defense, I tell you what, I'm really impressed with how Brent Venables has turned this defense around in such a short period of time. Last year, their defense couldn't stop anybody. Now, all of a sudden, they're able to go out and look as good as they did. I'm impressed. Call me impressed, and I'll be honest with you. Oklahoma has a very good shot of finishing this season undefeated. I'm going to pull up their schedule real quick as we're talking. I mean, they have a really good chance of finishing undefeated. I mean, they've got they are at home against UCF next weekend. Or no, I'm sorry, they're off. See, let me pull up the full schedule. All right, so they played. All right, they played Arkansas State. They blew them out, obviously. They beat SMU 28-11. They beat Tulsa 66-17. They beat Cincinnati 20-6. They beat Iowa State 50-20. They beat Texas 34-30. Next game on their schedule is the 21st of October at home against UCF. UCF does not look good right now. They're 0-3 in the conference. Oklahoma should beat UCF. Then they have to go on the road to face Kansas. Won't be an easy game, but I still think Oklahoma's a better team there. Then they have to play the Bedlam game on November the 4th against Oklahoma State in Stillwater. We'll talk about Oklahoma State in just a minute, but Oklahoma will be the heavy favorite in that game probably. Then my team, West Virginia, goes to Norman. They'll be a heavy favorite in that game. Then they have to travel to Provo. Could be a trap game for them a little bit, but again will be a heavy favorite. And then they close out the year at TCU. So there are some games in there where Oklahoma could trip up. But man, they should be heavy favorites in just about every game they play the rest of the way. So Oklahoma could theoretically finish this season undefeated and make it to the college football playoff. Let's catch up on some comments here. We've got Kenny Evans in the house. He says, I'm looking forward to WVU Oklahoma game. Would be a great game. If both are ranked, would mean a ton more. Absolutely. And I'm going to touch on West Virginia a little bit more here in a minute, but absolutely. West Virginia could go into that game with what, an 8-1 or 9-1 record, whatever it is. And Oklahoma could potentially be undefeated. They could both be highly ranked teams. Obviously, I don't like thinking that far ahead, but it's fun to do that occasionally, right? A man can dream, can he? A man can dream. Let a man dream. That would be an exciting game for West Virginia to prove themselves. And don't forget the game 2 years ago in Norman, folks, when West Virginia had Oklahoma on the ropes, was driving down to kick what would have been a game-winning field goal. We botched a snap, ended up knocking us out of field goal range. We ended up giving the ball away. Oklahoma comes down, kicks a game-winning field goal to win. I think it was 16-13. So West Virginia could have had a good chance to beat, I think it was a top 5 ranked Oklahoma team in Norman that year, and we blew it. So this team is capable of beating Oklahoma. And obviously we beat them last year. Of course, it wasn't the same Oklahoma team. I understand that. But nonetheless, it's Oklahoma, right? They're always a tough out. But I want to hear you guys let me know in the chat. Do you think Oklahoma finishes the season undefeated, or do you think they're going to end up slipping up at some point before it's all said and done? And then when you look at Texas, when you look at their schedule, of course, Texas and Oklahoma could meet again in the conference title game. This is what most people are predicting. But when you look at Texas's schedule here, which I'm trying to pull up for us, it's not cooperating with me here. Let me go back. But yeah, when you look at Texas's schedule here, the Texas's schedule, from what I've been told, is tougher. And from looking at it earlier in the season, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was a tougher schedule than what Oklahoma had. But let's take a look at it here real quick. All right, so they lost to Oklahoma. Their next game is also the 21st. They have to go to Houston. Boy, that's going to be a fun one to watch. That's Houston's Super Bowl right there, baby. To play Texas at home. Texas has avoided going to Houston for years now. They finally have to go there and play. Maybe the last time ever, too. But that'll be a fun game to watch. Then they host BYU in Austin. Then they host Kansas State in Austin. Then they go on the road to face TCU. Then they have to go to Iowa State. Then they come back home to close the season out against Texas Tech. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty tough schedule there if you ask me. I think they have a little bit tougher schedule than what Oklahoma has overall. But at the end, I don't know, though. You could say they're pretty close to even right now based on what we've seen. Earlier in the season, it looked tougher, but based on what we've seen now in the Big 12 play, these schedules are pretty evenly matched, in my opinion. So it's very feasible. We could see a Texas-Oklahoma rematch in the Big 12 championship game. Now, would that be terrible for the Big 12 to see that happen? Some would say yes. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. Uh, you know, we could just see a repeat of a hell of a football game, like David Cummings mentioned earlier. Nothing wrong with that. But now my preference obviously would be to see one of the new Big 12 teams in that game against either Oklahoma or Texas, which would more than likely be Oklahoma at this point. I'd like to see somebody like West Virginia or Kansas or someone else in that game. And right now, it's up for grabs. There are several teams who still have a shot to get to Austin. I mean, West Virginia obviously right now is second in the conference. Oklahoma's at 3-0 in league play. West Virginia's at 2-0. We're only 3 weeks into the Big 12 season, into Big 12 play, and there are only 2 undefeated teams left. That's pretty remarkable. Oklahoma's 3-0. West Virginia's 2-0. Everybody else has lost at least one game. So pretty remarkable, if you ask me. So, yeah, West Virginia has a shot to make it to Austin. I'm not predicting that because West Virginia so far, I'm really nervous about our offense. Can our offense step it up? I would like to think they can, but who knows? There's still a possibility that, West Virginia's – there's always at least one game every year where West Virginia loses to a team they shouldn't lose to. We have the tough game at Houston coming up this week. Could be a kind of a setup / trap week for us. We still have to go to the bounce house and play UCF. I know UCF's struggling right now, but that's a really tough place to play. We still have to go on the road to Waco to play Baylor. We obviously still have Oklahoma, and we still have Oklahoma State coming to Morgantown in a couple weeks. So some games that are none of them are gimmies. There's no gimme games on this schedule for anybody right now. This is a league that's full of parity. You might could say the league's down, but either way, it's a fun league, and anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday. What's up, Mike Wilkerson? Mike Wilkerson is a new subscriber here. Mike, thank you for joining us, man. Mike was someone I met through the Outlaw College Football show that I did yesterday. So, Mike, thanks for joining, man. We got John Kelly in the house. Kenny Evans, a channel member, saying everybody hit the thumbs up button. That definitely helps that algorithm. Peace out. Thank you for joining the show. Tax Sprint, thank you for joining the show. I haven't seen your name in here before. Thank you. Michael Olenek. Kenny Evans is also a channel member. Alan Tran is in the house. Dustin Saltz. And, of course, Evil Cowboy and David Cummings, who I mentioned earlier. So thanks, everybody, for joining the show. Mike Wilkerson says, Mountaineers don't let me down. Y'all are my dark horse for Jerry's World. Hey, thanks, Mike. I'd love to get there, man. It would be fun to play you guys in Jerry's World. I'm pretty sure Mike is an Oklahoma fan. Michael Olenek says, we have no offensive until we get an offense. We will not play for the Big 12 championship. I've got faith that our offense will improve. I know Garrett Green is still – look, guys, Garrett Green has only played, 2.5 games at the quarterback position so far this year because of that ankle injury he suffered. So he's only going to get better. I feel like the receivers that we're going to be putting on the field now are going to step up and play better. Cortez Braham and Jeremiah Aaron have left the team, but neither of those guys were playing very well. They had both dropped some balls that neither were getting open a lot. They just weren't living up to expectation. I feel like the guys we have now are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder with something to prove, and I think they're going to come out and play better football the rest of the way. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Garrett Green and his ability to run the football. I'm excited about this running game. I feel like C.J. Donaldson, he's now had some time off, some time to rest his body, some time to get his mind right. I think he'll come out and play much better on Thursday night. I really like what I'm seeing out of the true freshman, Jaheim White, going forward. I'm excited to see what he can do as he gets more snaps. So, yeah, I really have I don't think this offense is ever going to set the world on fire, but I do think we can improve a lot going forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about what we saw in other Big 12 games, guys. I mean, we saw Oklahoma State, that game on Friday night between Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Who saw that coming? I mean, I sure didn't. I felt like Kansas State was going to win that game pretty comfortably. And, guys, I'm telling you, Kansas State has a lot of issues. They did not look good on the offensive side of the ball. I felt like their defense played okay. I mean, Oklahoma State only scored one offensive touchdown in that game. They had one offensive touchdown, 5 field goals, and then they had a pick 6. So their defense did not play terrible. They were giving up some yards and had a few big plays, but they were not they were not letting Oklahoma State get in the end zone a lot. But their offense was atrocious, man. I mean, Will Howard, what has happened to Will Howard? Last year, Will Howard looked like he would come into this year. I mean, some people were saying he was a dark horse to be the best quarterback in the league. At least I heard a few people talk about that. I mean, I had high expectations for the guy. And look, season's not over. It's only one game. But I'm telling you what, if Kansas State has a lot of things to get right on the offensive side of the football, they did not look comfortable. It didn't look like Will Howard and his receivers were on the same page for most of the night. The running game just wasn't what we expected it to be, and they looked absolutely atrocious on offense. Now, Oklahoma State, on the other hand, you got to give them credit. They played a pretty good game. Their defense stepped up, played good. Maybe they were the reason Kansas State looked so bad. Maybe Brian Nardo and that defense just played a heck of a game. But Oklahoma State, to me, still does not look like a really good football team. They look like an okay team. They're not a bad team necessarily. But Oklahoma State still didn't show me a whole lot on the offensive side of the ball. They had some big plays, but I mean, they still were inconsistent at times. I wasn't blown away by Alan Bowman at the quarterback position. I really like what I see out of Ollie Gordon at the running back spot, and I think he needs to be the featured guy going forward. They need to get him the football as much as they possibly can. But Oklahoma State's still a dangerous team. They're not going to be a gimme. They're not going to be easy. We were all, myself included, kind of writing this team off a week ago. And now all of a sudden it looks like Oklahoma State could be right there in the thick of this Big 12 race as we go further into the season. So I have to admit here I was wrong. And this is no longer going – I no longer see this as a probable win on the schedule when they come to Morgantown in a couple weeks. I think it's going to be more of a toss-up. So hats off to Mike Gundy and his staff for what they were able to do. And how about that video? If you guys haven't had a chance, go look at the video that Oklahoma State posted on their Twitter account after that game. It was their post-game celebration. Great to see it. Great to see Mike Gundy. You know, there's been a lot of rumors out there about Gundy and this team, and is he on the hot seat? You know, is this team in trouble? All kinds of different things. But it looked to me like when you look at that post-game press conference, it looked like Mike Gundy and those players were all together. They're all playing and fighting for each other, coaching for each other. And it didn't look like to me that there were any locker room issues. Now I know that's, you know, one moment in time doesn't necessarily reflect the big picture, but that team to me looks like one that's starting to get things right, starting to get things on the right track. And if they start getting on the right track, you never know. This team could end up being one of the better teams in the conference, despite what happened a couple of weeks ago when they lose that game to South Alabama. Then some other games around the league. Kansas, man, what about Kansas and what they did to UCF? Holy cow. Is UCF really that bad? Or is Kansas that good on the offensive side of the ball? I think it's a little bit of both. I think UCF's defense is absolutely horrific. And I think Kansas's offense is extremely good, especially at running the football. And those two together was just a bad combination. And I think Kansas's defense is probably better than a lot of us have given them credit for. I said early on I thought Kansas would be probably third, maybe fourth in this conference. Fourth would at the worst. And they still have a chance to do that. Their only conference loss so far is to Oklahoma. So, or I'm sorry, to Texas, I think it was. So it was one of the two. I can't even remember at this point. But so they've lost to one of the two best teams in the conference, and they've been able to so far beat anybody else. Now, it'll be anxious to see I'll be anxious to see what happens with Jalen Daniels. Is he able to recover from this back issue he's having? And how much difference does that even make? Jason Bean, guys. Jason Bean is a good quarterback. He's one of the better backup quarterbacks, not only in the conference, but maybe even in the country. He would start on a lot of teams right now. So Jason Bean is not a slouch. So I'll be interested to see how this Kansas team moves forward if Jalen Daniels is not able to come back. And how bad is that back issue? If there's any Kansas fans right now, for any Kansas fans in the chat, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what Jalen Daniels' prognosis is going forward. Do you guys expect him to be back for their game next weekend, which I don't have their schedule in front of me, but let me pull it up real quick. Let's see. KU Athletics. All right, here we go. Kansas. Their next game is mentioned earlier at Oklahoma State on the 14th. Then they have to go. They're home against Oklahoma, so it was Texas they played. So they got kind of the short end of the stick, having to play Texas and Oklahoma both. A lot of teams didn't have to do that this year. They did. So that works to their disadvantage. They have a little bit of a disadvantage there. As a West Virginia fan, I'm glad we don't have to play Kansas. They are a very dangerous football team. They play away at Iowa State, home against Texas Tech, home against Kansas State, and then they finish the season on the road against the Cincinnati Bearcats. So, I mean, I could see Kansas finishing with 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 more wins, maybe 5. So they could be right there in the thick of the Big 12 conference hunt too before it's all said and done. So don't count the Jayhawks out. And guys, how about Iowa State? Nobody's talking about Iowa State. I wrote Iowa State off. I thought they'd be one of the bottom teams in this league, and they still could be. But right now, the performance they put on against TCU was pretty remarkable. I mean, they went out there and absolutely dominated TCU. Now, yes, maybe TCU's not very good this year, but I'm telling you, they looked really, really good against TCU, and better than I thought. I mean, they got a redshirt freshman, Rocco Becht, at quarterback, who, I tell you what, guys, he's grown up before our eyes, and he looks really, really good. And what's scary about Iowa State is how young they are. They are loaded with underclassmen. So they might be an average team this year. They could be even better next year. If Hunter Deckers comes back at quarterback, if Jairell Brock comes back, I think I thought I read Jairell Brock may have left the team. But somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I mean, they're a very young team, and if they're average this year, they could be really, really good next year and could be a really tough out. So I'm not excited about seeing Iowa State and how good they could be going forward. Fortunately, again, West Virginia, we do not have to play them. West Virginia, if you look at our schedule going forward, I mean, Mountaineer Paul was the first one to mention this, but we traded Texas, Kansas, Kansas State, and Iowa State for the 4 newcomers. That's a pretty good trade, in my opinion. Now, you could argue that BYU could end up being better than Iowa State or even some of the other schools that we missed out on, but right now, the way it sits, I'd say BYU and Iowa State are pretty much evenly matched teams. But to trade Texas, Kansas, and Kansas State for Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston, pretty good deal in my opinion. So that's one reason I like the way this schedule plays out for West Virginia, and why I think, even though it may be a long shot, I do think West Virginia has a shot to get to Arlington for the Big 12 title game. Again, I'm not predicting it, but I do think they have a shot. Texas Tech looked good against Baylor. Baylor's got a lot of issues, guys. Baylor has a lot of issues. If that Baylor doesn't get their problems fixed, will we see Dave Aranda? Could we see Dave Aranda get fired from Kansas State? I mean, from Baylor. That would be something else, wouldn't it? To see him get kicked to the curb. I don't think they should kick him to the curb. I mean, they just won the Big 12 title 2 years ago. I don't think you fire him last year they won 6 games, made a bowl game. If they don't make a bowl game this year, there are going to be some fans out there calling for his job. But I think we need to slow our roll a little bit. Give him time. He needs more time, because that team 2 years ago was mainly Matt Rule's players still. So give Dave Aranda time to build a team the way he wants to build it with the players he wants before we write him off. Yes, they have issues, but I think he can get it fixed. I do think Dave Aranda is a good football coach. And Texas Tech. Now, is Texas Tech better than they had looked the previous couple of weeks? And we know ever since we beat them, ever since West Virginia beat them, they went and beat Houston 48-28, and then they turn around and dominate Baylor. So 2 pretty dominant performances. Were Houston and Baylor just bad, or is Texas Tech improving? I think it's a little bit of both. I do think Texas Tech is improving, and I think they're going to be a football team they're going to be a bowl eligible football team. They're going to be a football team that can beat anybody on any given Saturday. The way that offense can put up points, you cannot overlook Texas Tech, especially with, Taj Brooks, guys. Holy cow, Taj Brooks. Best running back in the conference right now. Guy's absolutely killing it out there. Up until this point has been underutilized. It looks like Texas Tech is finally starting to get him to football more. They need to keep that up if they want to keep winning football games. But Texas Tech is a team that could trip some people up. I had predicted Texas Tech to play in the Big 12 title game. That's not going to happen, I don't believe. But they still get Texas on the schedule, and I still think they have a shot to beat Texas on Thanksgiving. Uh, so, or at least Thanksgiving week. I don't know if it's actually on Thanksgiving, but Texas Tech can still beat Texas. It's going to be tough, but they can still do it. So again, there is no gimmies on this schedule, guys. I don't care whether it's UCF. I don't care if it's Baylor. I don't care if it's Oklahoma State, West Virginia. There is no gimmies on this schedule. And if you're Oklahoma and Texas, you cannot overlook anybody because any of these teams are capable of tripping you up at any point in time. And if I'm West Virginia, you cannot overlook this week's game against Houston. Yes, I know Houston has not looked good, guys. Their defense has not been able to stop a lot of people. They have a lot of issues at Houston. But I'm telling you, several things concern me in this game. Number one, there are a lot of former West Virginia players on that Houston team, notably Tony Mathis Jr. and Michael Laughlin, who played 3 to 4 years for West Virginia. So they probably know a lot of things about this West Virginia team that nobody else knows, that they can share that with the coaching staff. They can share some intricacies, some details about West Virginia's defense, maybe that you may not be able to pick up on film. That concerns me a little bit. So maybe certain weaknesses in certain players that they might be able to exploit. I'm also concerned about Houston's passing game. Houston has a really good passing attack. 3 of the best, maybe the best receiving core we will see or have seen up to this point this year. They've got Joseph Manjack. They've got Sam Brown, who's another West Virginia transfer, who's right now the leading receiver in the Big 12 as far as yardage goes. And then they've got a guy named Matthew Golden, who's also really good. So this Houston team is loaded at skill positions. It's in the trenches. I think West Virginia has a big advantage right now. Houston does have an NFL caliber left tackle on the offensive side. But other than that, I think West Virginia will outman them in the trenches. And I think that's where West Virginia has an advantage. I see a super chat. Matador Mike, man, thank you for the super chat. Matador Mike says, West Virginia is good at controlling the pace of play. Taj Brooks, 4 games, 100-plus yards. Could have had 100 against Oregon if he had more than his 6 carries, which went for 66 yards. Getting some studs back soon. Yeah, Matador Mike, when I saw that he only had 6 carries in that Oregon game, I was baffled. Why would you have a guy that talented and not give him the football more than 6 times? That blew me away. And I'm sure if this coaching staff could go back and do it again, they would give him the ball more than 6 times because he's been on an absolute tear. I mean, he had over, even though West Virginia won that game, he shredded us there in the second half. He shredded us and ended up with over 100 yards of rushing in that game. So definitely a good running back for the Red Raiders there. So if you guys want to be like Matador Mike and make sure your comment gets read, make sure you drop a super chat there at the bottom where it says chat. You hit the $sign, put your chat in, and then hit send, and it'll highlight your chat for me. It'll push it to the top where I see it and highlight it for me. Let's touch on a few comments here real quick. I won't be able to get to all of them, guys, because there's just too many. WV Football Going Deep, thank you for hopping in, everybody. He also has a channel where he covers West Virginia football. He says, see, soon as Green is able to start faster, play looser early in the game, the offense will take off. Complete 3 or 4 good passes early, and defense will have to back off a bit, open up the run game. Totally agreed. WV Football Going Deep. Another thing that I think will help our run game is, like I said, just getting those few extra days of rest, letting their bodies rest up. Because, guys, these running backs take an absolute pounding. A week off probably helps the running back position as much or more than any position on the football team because they get to rest their bodies, heal their bodies, and they get to come back close to 100%, hopefully. John Waffle, H2P, I'm not even reading that comment, bro. That's a bad take. Totally bad take, especially considering we whipped your all's ass 3 weeks ago. So get that stuff out of here, man. If we're not relevant, then what's Pitt? That's all I got to say. We good with Aranda, much respect to Aranda. Thanks you, Alan. Yeah, he needs more time, man. He's only, like I said, he needs to get his own players in there. Yes, there's some issues there at Baylor, but again, he'll get them fixed. Our secondary is going to eat up Houston's passing game. That is going to be an interesting matchup. My preview show for that will be coming out tomorrow. I was able to interview Parker Ainsworth from Locked On Couz. We chatted back and forth about the game. Totally forgot to do a score prediction. So I'll give you my score prediction right here. I do think West Virginia wins this game, but I think it's going to be tight. I think the spread come out depending on what service you're looking at. I think it could be anywhere from -2. I saw up to -4. So it's going to be a tight spread. Vegas thinks it's going to be a tight game. It is on the road. I do think it's a tricky spot for West Virginia because they're now starting to get some respect. Can they keep that chip on their shoulder they've been playing with all year? Well, now all of a sudden you're looking and you're number 2 in the conference, one of only 2 undefeated teams. People are now starting to take notice of you. Can you still keep that chip on your shoulder? I think they can for multiple reasons. Number one, the comments Dana Holgorsen made when he left, he said he cannot recruit players good enough to win the Big 12 at West Virginia. That ought to rub those guys wrong. Number two, they now have a Big 12 title shot that they are playing for. And I think that should motivate them to go out week in, week out and perform. I'm also concerned about injuries. You know, obviously Trey Lathan is out for the rest of the year. Will Aubrey Burks be back for this game? I'm a little concerned about that. And our offensive linemen that got banged up against TCU, will they be back to 100% for this Houston game? That's yet to be determined, and we probably won't know, to be honest, until game time, because we know Coach Brown doesn't like to do an injury report. But again, back to what Matador Mike said in his super chat, they do like to control the pace of play, and I think they'll need to do that again this week against Houston. They need to win time of possession. Again, like they have been every single week. Matador Mike has joined and become a member of Couz's Corner. Matador Mike, I want to thank you, man, for joining the channel, becoming a VIP member here at Couz's Corner. For those of you who don't know what that is, there should be a join button somewhere on the screen for you to hit to become a channel member. If it's not, you can, after this, I'll go in and put the link to it in my description. But you can become a member here. There are special perks. If you're a paid member of the channel, you get early access to some videos. You may get occasionally I'll leave a video where you get limited. I'll leave it only where channel members only get limited ads. That's a perk for being a club level member, which is level 2, which is $4.99 a month. One thing for channel members, if you email me your physical address, mailing address, I will mail you, and my email is couz.walker, COUZ.WALKER at Gmail. I will email you a drink koozie with my logo on it and my tagline of top shelf college football content. All channel members get one of those. If you're a new member and haven't sent me your address, do that. Couz.walker at Gmail. I will mail you a koozie. Thank you, Tax Sprint. He joined as a pub level member. Thank you for that, Tax Sprint. I appreciate that. You will get random member shout outs. You will get recognized as a VIP member. You will get access to some special content on occasion. And occasionally I will do a raffle or something, some kind of contest. When I do that, all channel members are eligible to be involved in that. And again, I will mail you also. If you send me your address, I'll mail you a Couz's Corner drink koozie. So yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for the channel membership. And also being a channel member, your comments get a preference in the chat room. Matador Mike talking about somebody being a freshman. Parker Jenkins. Yes. Parker Jenkins, the running back at Houston. Glad you brought him up. He is a freshman and he's good. Now, Tony Mathis Jr., who transferred from West Virginia, is also a running back in that room at Houston. He's dealing with some injuries. He's been banged up. I think he's had an ankle issue. So he hasn't gotten the amount of snaps he probably would like to get. I think he's second or even third on the depth chart there so far for Houston. But Parker Jenkins is a running back that scares me. Dana Holgorsen is always going to have really good skill position guys. I don't care where he's at. He had him at West Virginia. He'll have him at Houston. Where I think West Virginia has an advantage is on the line of scrimmage, like I said earlier. I think West Virginia should be able to win the battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And because of that, that's why I think West Virginia has an edge in this game and should be able to win. I think it's going to be a close game. I think my score prediction, which before I got sidetracked, my score prediction for this game, I think the game's going to be in the 20s again because that's where West Virginia likes to keep it. I think West Virginia wins this game 27-24. That's my prediction, 27-24 Mountaineers. I think they score just enough points on offense. I think Houston will get a couple Houston's going to make a couple big plays in this game. A couple of them may even go for touchdowns, but I think at the end of the day, they don't have the depth, especially up front, to compete with West Virginia in the trenches. And I think they eventually wear down. They don't stop the run well, so I think West Virginia will be able to bleed clock, win the time of possession. I think C.J. Donaldson has another big game. his best game since the Pitt game. And I think because of that, I think Garrett Green will have another good day running the football. And because of that, West Virginia wins 27-24. That's my prediction. Matador Mike says he's not sure. Matador Mike, somebody probably gifted you a membership, my friend. Memberships can be gifted to people. That's probably how you became a member. So hopefully you will enjoy being a member of the channel, see the perks that, enjoy the perks that go with it, and continue your membership. But yeah, someone probably gifted you a membership. And whoever gifted him that membership, it's much appreciated. We got John Kelly in the house talking about WVU Football Going Deep's channel. Yeah, go check out WVU Football Going Deep. Let's look at some other Big 12 games this week coming up, if I can find them here. But really, I mean, I want to talk about what teams have the best chance to make Arlington. Now, obviously, most of the quote unquote experts are saying it's going to be Texas and Oklahoma, and on paper that looks to be accurate. But you got West Virginia now sitting at 2-0. We have a legit chance to finish with only one loss in conference, maybe even go undefeated in conference, which is a long shot. I'm going to type Big 12 football standings. Let's pull that up real quick. And we'll look at it here and see who has the best chance to make it to Arlington. And, of course, my computer is going to act like an idiot and not want to load for me. Big 12 football 2023. Good grief. Yeah, for whatever reason, my internet is being absolute weird. Totally weird. Cannot get this page to load to save my life. That's what happened. Hey, welcome to live YouTube, folks. You never know what's going to happen. I'll do it on my phone. All right, here we go. Big 12 sports. Let's see. Big 12 football standings. Here we go. All right, we've got Oklahoma at 3-0. Why is it doing it? Okay, Oklahoma 3-0, West Virginia 2-0, Texas 2-1, Iowa State 2-1, Kansas 2-1, Texas Tech 2-1, BYU 1-1, Kansas State 1-1, Oklahoma State 1-1, TCU 1-2, Baylor 1-2, Cincinnati 0-2, Houston 0-2, UCF bringing up the rear at 0-3, which I don't think any of us saw that happening. Tax Brent says, who's a channel member now, I think, new channel member here, he says, I think the best shot is still Oklahoma and Texas. Unfortunately, you are right, Tax Brent. That would be unfortunate for us. Like I said earlier, it would be a heck of a football game to see those two go at it again. So it would be an entertaining game, and I would probably still watch it. But at the end of the day, I would definitely prefer one of the other Big 12 teams get a shot, preferably two of them. But that's looking less and less likely now, especially with Oklahoma being 3-0. But when you look at the schedules here, let's look at Iowa State's schedule. See if they got a good chance to make it to Arlington. My internet must be acting up on me today because stuff's not. Here we go. All right. Iowa State has to go to Cincinnati. That game, that could be a toss-up right there. Then they go to Baylor. I think now I would take Iowa State to win that game now. I wouldn't have earlier in the year. They play at home against Kansas. I'm taking Kansas in that one. Then they go to BYU, another toss-up. Then they are at home against Texas. That's a loss. And then Kansas State, which is another toss-up. So I don't see Iowa State winning enough to get in the Big 12 title. All right, let's look at West Virginia's schedule. West Virginia, we go to Houston, should be a win. We are at home against Oklahoma State. That game's probably a toss-up at this point. Then we travel to UCF. Right now, I would have said it was a loss or a toss-up. Now I'm saying it's a win because UCF does not look good. Then we are at home against BYU, a toss-up. Then we travel to Norman to take on Oklahoma. That's probably a loss. Then we're at home against Cincinnati, should be a win. Then we travel to Waco to take on Baylor, which at this point looks like a win. So, again, West Virginia, I see probably one more loss. I see definitely one more loss on the schedule, maybe two. Would that be enough? Would a two-loss team make it to Arlington? Very possible. Then you look at let's look at Kansas' schedule. I think we looked at it earlier, but you got Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Cincinnati. That's a tough one. Oklahoma's probably a loss. But the rest of those games, man, Kansas could be favorites in all those games. It's going to be interesting to me if it comes down to the end of the year. We could end up seeing a tie between two teams who didn't play each other. And I'm not sure how the tiebreaker works there. I'm sure they'll look at common opponents and those kind of things, maybe score differential. If it comes down to that, West Virginia is probably not going to do real well because we're not going to blow anybody out. Our offense is just not good enough right now to blow anybody out. We're having to win with solid defense, keep the games low scoring, and just make less mistakes than everybody else, which we have been doing for the most part. We've not turned the ball over a lot. We have committed the least amount of penalties in the conference. That's what West Virginia has to do to win games this year. That's just how this team's constructed. Matador Mike says, let's get a rematch of Tech and West Virginia in the Big 12 championship game. That was a good defensive game. It was a good defensive. If you like defense, that was a game for you. He says West Texas versus West Virginia. You got that right. And that was, again, I think that's kind of becoming a rivalry to a degree, Matador Mike. He says, I was born in Huntington, West Virginia, raised in Lubbock. I have always liked West Virginia a little bit. Hey, man, it's good to know. You know what? There are West Virginia fans or even people who may not be quote-unquote fans, but who like to cheer for West Virginia. There are those people all over the country, man. You can travel all over this country. You'll see West Virginia fans in California, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Las Vegas, which I've never been to California, but almost everywhere I've traveled to, I've ran into a West Virginia fan, man. It's pretty neat, actually. And I'll have something with West Virginia on, and somebody will say, let's go Mountaineers, or, hey, man, what part of West Virginia are you from? Or there's always some kind of connection. It's pretty cool to see. Houston scoreless, man. That would be nice. Bama 25 thinks we'll hold Houston scoreless. That would be really cool if we could do that. Was I happy to see Caden Prather making plays? Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's a little bit frustrating. Not gonna lie, because he should be doing that for us. And let's be honest, we needed that this year. They did everything they could to keep him. It's from what I've heard, they did all they could do from an NIL perspective to keep Caden Prather on this team. He just flat out didn't want to stay, man. So, I know Maryland is home for him, so maybe he wanted to go home. I don't know what his reasoning was, but I have no ill will towards him, but it is frustrating to see. You just kind of think, what if? What if he had stayed? He could have really helped his team. But yeah, looking at Kansas' schedule, it's very feasible. But Kansas has one loss so far. I see Oklahoma as a loss too. That would be two losses for them. But it's very possible Kansas could end up with two losses in conference. Then you've got Texas Tech, who has the one loss so far. They still have to play at home against Kansas State, at BYU, at Texas, or at home against TCU. Then they go to Kansas. That Texas Tech Kansas game is going to be intriguing to me. I've had that game circled for me for quite a while now. That game was on November the 11th. That game, to me, is going to be very entertaining because I think those teams are fairly evenly matched in some areas. Then Texas Tech is at home to UCF, and then they close the season out at Texas on Thanksgiving week. So I think Texas is a loss. I think Kansas is probably a loss. So I think Texas Tech probably loses at least two more games. So that knocks them out of the Big 12 title game. Let's look at BYU. Could BYU sneak up on some people here? BYU travels to TCU this coming weekend. Then they're at home against Texas Tech. Then they travel to Texas. That'll be a loss. Then they have to come to Morgantown. Then they're at home against Iowa State. Then they're at home against Oklahoma. They're another team who has to play both Texas and Oklahoma on the schedule. So there's probably 2 more losses for them. Excuse me. They lost to Kansas. They're probably going to lose to Oklahoma and Texas and maybe even one more. So I don't see BYU getting in the conference title game. Let's look at Kansas State. Was that game on Friday night a fluke? Let's look at their schedule. They've beaten UCF and lost to Oklahoma State. They do 2 Texas Tech. I'm taking Texas Tech in that game, by the way. Then they're at home against TCU. I'm taking Kansas State in that one. Houston, I'm taking Kansas State in that one. Then they go to Texas. I'm taking Texas. So there would be at least 2 losses. Then they're at home against Baylor. I'm taking Kansas State. Then they go to Kansas. I actually think I'm picking Kansas in that one. So I think Kansas State loses at least 2 more games. That would probably put them out of the Big 12 title game. Hey, Andrew Smith, what's up, man? He says, what's up, Couz? Andrew's also a channel member here. Thank you, Andrew. Jordan Cruz, he has a channel called Country Roads Webcast. Go check it out. He says, going to have to go back and watch most of the show on playback, just now getting to hop in, but hope you're doing well, bro. Getting excited for Thursday. Yeah, me too. I'm also getting nervous for Thursday. What we're doing right now, Jordan, is just we're kind of going over what team has the best shot to get into Arlington other than Oklahoma and Texas. And I'm kind of going through the schedules right now. So, see, right now I think West Virginia obviously has a good chance. I think Kansas has a good chance. That's really about it, guys. I don't see Cincinnati, UCF, or Houston obviously getting there. I don't see Baylor getting there now with their 2 losses already. Pretty much any team that already has 2 losses, they're probably going to lose at least 1 more. Probably not going to happen. So you can count UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, Baylor, TCU probably all out of contention at this point, which leaves Iowa State. See, leaves West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. And the way the schedules are lining up, you really got to look at West Virginia and Kansas. Maybe Texas Tech still has a shot. I don't know, man. That Texas Tech Kansas game there could be a lot riding on that game, a lot more than we realize. Because I think either of those teams could be competing for that top 3, top 4 teams in the league. I'm looking at Texas Tech's schedule again one more time. Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, man. Texas Tech has a path. It's very feasible Texas Tech could go the rest of the way without losing a game until they get to the end of the year against Texas. So Texas Tech still has a path to get to the title game, folks. If Oklahoma or Texas can slip up, then TCU or Texas Tech can knock off Texas in that last game of the season. They could get there. They really could. All right, let's get into the comment section here. So basically, to summarize, more than likely it's going to be Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12 title. West Virginia, Kansas, and Texas Tech, in my opinion, have the better chances of spoiling either of those teams from getting there, based on their schedule and what they've looked like to date. West Virginia's defense has been playing so good; they're going to be tough for anyone to beat, even Oklahoma. I'll be honest. I'm that confident in our defense, barring any more major injuries. I would put our defense up against anybody right now. Problem we're going to have is, can we score the football? That's going to be the problem. Let's see if we can hit some comments here before we call this thing quits for the day. Get ready to go cook some hamburgers for dinner here on a chilly day in West Virginia. Patrick Nelson thinks West Virginia beats Houston 24-7. Evil Cowboy says keeping guys healthy is going to be big in this 6-game stretch. You got that right. Houston can score. They definitely can. That's what worries me a little bit. They're probably going to get at least 1 or 2 big plays on us because that's just what they do. They don't run the ball very well, and they don't stop the run very well. Those 2 things, to me, play in our favor. But, we've got to keep the big plays to a minimum. Their secondary is good, but they're not real good up front. That's where I think I'm not real worried about their secondary because we haven't been able to pass the ball against anybody anyway. But if we can run the ball on them and get a few get just enough plays in the pass game to keep them honest, some underneath stuff to Cole Taylor, the tight end, and then Garrett Green use his legs and run around a little bit. That's our key to victory right there. Tax Sprint says, I think the best shot is still Oklahoma and Texas. Unfortunately, yep, definitely agree with you. We touched on that earlier. See what other comments we got here. Otto Jones says, I mentioned previously that we need to take it one game at a time. Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy is very unpredictable. When you think they are dead, they surprise people. Absolutely. Just like they did Friday night. I did not see that coming. I thought Kansas State would basically mop the floor with Oklahoma State. Did not happen. Did not happen. We were writing Oklahoma State off for dead, wondering if Mike Gundy would keep his job, and boom, they come out and win. That's just how they are, man. You can never count them out. WVU wins out. Texas Tech wins out. Then, how do we feel about Marshall? I actually watched here. Interesting tidbit of information for you guys. My middle daughter is a senior in high school, and she is planning to attend Marshall. She just went on a tour of the campus yesterday, fell in love with the place. So my daughter's going to be going to Marshall. I could not. I tried my best to get her to go to WVU, but she did not want to. And of course, I'm not going to force her to. It's her life. She has to live it the way she wants and make her own choices. So she has chosen to go to Marshall. Now, because of that, I said, heck with it. I'm going to turn around. West Virginia wasn't playing. I said, I'm going to see what Marshall's got in football. I'm telling you what, man, Marshall's a good football team. Now, they ended up losing that game against NC State, but they put up a lot of points and really could have won that game yesterday. Charles Huff has got that team playing at a high level. I'm glad we don't have to play Marshall right now. They could beat us, I think. They are that good. Marshall's a really good team. I'm not saying they would beat us, and they wouldn't be favored to beat us, but they could beat us if we didn't play our A game. So Marshall looks really good right now, and I'm going to, because my daughter's going to be attending there. I've never hated Marshall. I've always wanted Marshall to do well when they were playing against other teams. But I've gotten in some spats with their fan base who thinks they're better than West Virginia because they're obviously not, especially when you look historically. But Marshall has a legit chance to win the Sun Belt Conference, I think. I think they're that good. And, look, NC State's not an elite program, but they are good. They're a good program, and they're probably going to make a bowl game. And Marshall could have beat them yesterday in Raleigh. So I was impressed with Marshall. A quarterback they got's very athletic and can make some good throws when he needs to. And they got one of the best running backs in the country in Rasheen Ali, and they can get pressure on the quarterback. So that's my thoughts on Marshall. So I'm probably going to be Marshall's probably going to be my second team from here on out, since my daughter's going to be going to school there. May even catch some games. ESPN College, Julian Smith in the house. Julian says ESPN College game day could be at Texas Tech versus Kansas on November the 11th. They could, and that would be exciting. I don't know. Like I said earlier, for whatever reason, that game in my mind, when I was on my preseason schedule prediction, and I had looked at that game, I thought, man, that game right there could be huge in determining who wins this conference, or at least who plays in Arlington. Got Stephen Kill in the house. Thank you, Stephen. JD Wilmouth says, Harvey, you are dreaming, dude. What did Harvey say? I got to see what Harvey said now. Oh, Outlaw. No invite, huh? Thanks to Outlaw College Football, who's a channel member here and also a moderator. Go check out his channel. He covers a lot of Oklahoma, Alabama, just a little bit of everything in college football. Very entertaining show. Buddy, I did not even plan this. I just said, screw it. I'm getting on and doing a live stream. So, no, I did not. I apologize. Jacob Yoho, thank you for being in the house. Marshall to Big 12. Yeah, hey, I hope not, but you never know. Outlaw says no one cares about Marshall. John Christophic says Texas will beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, and that would not surprise me in the least. I mean, Texas looked like the better team for a lot. I mean, that game was so much back and forth. Texas did not look like they looked like the better team at times, and then other times Oklahoma looked like the better team. So they're two very evenly matched teams. Both have a lot of five-star guys on the rosters. It could go either way. If they have to play again in the title game, it's going to be a very entertaining game. But I would definitely be rooting for Oklahoma if that happens. John, those Widrows are not. I don't know what he said. Or not something they're wannabes. I got a heart covering up the comment there. But anyway, guys, if you want, if you want to make sure your comment gets seen, I've got so many people in here now I cannot read every comment. If you want to make sure I see your comment, you can hit the $sign below the chat button. Hit the $sign. It'll highlight your chat for you. Make sure you put the comment in before you hit send, and then it'll make a small donation to my channel, and it will highlight your comment for me and push it to the top to make sure I see it. If you want to make sure your comment gets read, or if you have a little badge beside your name, it shows you're a channel member. I will also read those comments first as well. If you guys don't have anything else you want to say, I'm going to shut this bad boy down. Don't forget, guys, you can join the channel. And by the way, if you want to check out my merch store, today's October the 8th. Today is there's a limited time sale going on in my merch store right now. If you buy something from my merch store, links in the description, you save up to 15% off today only. Today's the last day of the sale. So if you've always been wanting to buy Couz's Corner merch, today's the day to do that because it's on sale. Those winners are not cadets, they are wannabes. Okay. Hell, I think I could win the Sun Belt Conference if they was in it, and that ain't saying much. Awesome stream, Couz. Let's go Mountaineers. Let's bring the Thunder. Thursday night against Dana. Outlaw says he's holding court on the Texas Long Week Saucers at 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Who wants to help prosecute? Yeah, Outlaw has a beef with Texas fans right now. This ought to be entertaining. Bama says Huck Fulgerson, and Brian Miller says, dang, just catching the stream. Watch the post. Yeah, Brian, go back and check out the replay, my man. It'll be up there for you. I don't have a fancy thumbnail made for this one, so you'll just have to, hopefully you'll find it there, though. It should be at the top of my channel page since it's the most recent post I have. And tomorrow I will be posting my preview video with Parker Ainsworth from Locked On Cougs. Really had a good time talking to Parker about Houston football and talking about this matchup and where there could be some matchup advantages for us and even for Houston. So with that being said, guys, thank you all for jumping on this live stream for me real quick. Even though I didn't plan it, it was impromptu. I still had pretty good turnout. I appreciate it. Everybody, if you haven't hit the like button yet, please do that before you leave. That really helps the algorithm, not only now, but even when it's posted on the replay. It will help it get seen by more people and helps this baby grow. So without further ado, guys, once again, I also want to shout out to my sponsor, Dutch Miller Automotive. Go to DutchMillerAuto.com for your automotive needs. They have locations throughout West Virginia, also in El Dorado, Kansas. They have some locations in Tennessee, some in Virginia. So go to DutchMillerAuto.com, find out if they have a location near you, and check them out for your next automotive purchase or your next service appointment. With that being said, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for the support, and Q Country Roads.